Welcome to Lightning Ministries Day Devotional. Today's topic, Not Alone to Rebuild. Reading from Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 11 through 18, where it was talking about the rebuilding of the walls and Nehemiah preparing to do so. What I'd like to talk about here is you and I navigating loss in a complex process. What do I mean by that? A lot of things are going on in our country right now. Storms and things that are devastating, tearing down things. But what's really interesting though is that we are a vital nation of people that once we are put into a situation of devastation, the first thing we do is clean up and start to rebuild. And that is exactly what Nehemiah was doing. I realized that in this straightforward path of grief, Nehemiah's journey for lamenting the broken walls of Jerusalem to rebuilding them offers you and I an insight as we, you and I, partner with God to put life's shattered places back together. It's funny, you really stop and think about it. We're probably the only nation in the world, and I'm not saying we're all on our own, that when something happens in this world, we're like the first responders. We're the first ones in. Red Cross, aid, I could go on. I won't give labels and names to those that will go in with resources to try to help those that were put in a devastating path of whatever it was that caused the problem. Now, I realize that in this particular message in the Bible, the destruction of Jerusalem's fortification was grieving the heart of Nehemiah. So he asked King Artaxerxes for permission to return to his city and rebuild the walls for its protection. Now, in this situation, Nehemiah was taking stock of what remains after loss, how important it is to take the right steps to move from grieving to rebuilding. Now, I'm not saying that they weren't sad, just like you and I are. If we're in a storm, we've lost everything, we don't know which way to turn, we don't know how we're going to see tomorrow. You know, some people even lose their lives. But I realize that it can be difficult for us to find the glimmer of hope while surveying the ruins and broken lives, relationships, and dreams that may never be. But you and I are never without one thing that matters most, and that's God's presence. Here Nehemiah knew this to be true. Why? Because he toured Jerusalem to inspect the walls and listen to what was needed to repair the damage. God used the king to give favor to Nehemiah to return, not only to return, but to receive the materials and the laborers and the guards and protection to go and put this stuff back together. But I realized that in doing this, he oriented himself towards a hope, a preservation, and he looked at what could be accomplished with God's help and not his own. Now, as the Lord did this with Nehemiah, he also invites you and I to view the rubble in our lives with eyes of faith. So let's dare to look beyond our present circumstances towards the joy of future restoration. A lot of people think that in this country that we're at the end of things, and that the possibility of us being restored back to a point of glory with the Lord is impossible. Even though the word says nothing's impossible with God. There's nothing that God can't do. There's nothing that God won't do. And in this, if we turn back to God and away from our sinful ways, then what we do is we bring that union back together and become one again. We're no longer working on our own. We're working together. And I'll give you a good example of this as we go closer to our Memorial Day, our day of celebration for those that serve at the front. But what we miss most of all in me saying that is that we as believers are first responders. We're there when someone needs prayer. We're there when someone needs resources. We're there when someone needs a caring hand or arm or shoulder to lean on as they struggle or as they deal with the tragedies that, for whatever reason, have been brought upon their lives. And while we have law enforcement and military and the medical industry, our goal and purpose as believers is to be the first responders. Let's not lose sight of that, because our prayers and efforts are just, if not more powerful than those that use their hands and feet to get to those things that are going on, which also means us. So I encourage you today that take a look outside yourself. Realize that we're not assessing what is left in our world. We're looking for the fact that we can rebuild and not be alone. Even for those that don't believe, they're still willing to put in a helping hand or effort at whatever level to be a part of putting back together what has been broken. I challenge you today to ask God to guide you in how you can be an instrument in doing that exact same thing. Hey, thanks for listening today. I hope in some way the story about Nehemiah and his heart towards what was not working and broken was put back together because he was willing to share his faith with another. Have a blessed day, and I look forward to you coming back.